Hello, I am Nathan Zimnock, and this is my presentation on the standard theory of the origin of life and evolution. First, I'll be explaining the standard theory and the evidence that we learned in class, and then also giving additional evidence that supports the theory. And then I will be providing additional hypothesis to evolution and the origin of life, and then giving evidence for those. And then at the very end, I will analyze the standard theory and my alternate hypothesis, and I will conclude on which one I believe to be the correct theory for origin of life and evolution.
So, evolution and origin of life is a very controversial topic, mainly because life does not have a concrete definition, and this is shown as it has changed over thousands of years, and even as recently as 2004, as you can see from the slide earlier in this from earlier in this semester that we went over. It's still changing. It's not easily defined, and it's going to change in the future. But life does have conditions that are associated with it. It needs to have the capacity for growth. It needs to be able to reproduce, and it needs to have a functional activity. So the standard theory we learned in class was that life first started in an environment that was able to produce organic molecules, and these molecules began to replicate, and what is believed to become the first signs of RNA. And then this allowed the ability to reproduce and carry genes to the offspring. And natural selection began to take shape at this time, because when it reproduced, genetic mutations and allowed for organisms that were better suited for their environment to survive, and then organisms that were not as well suited to die off. And then this process went on for millions and billions of years to create the animals and plants that we know and love today. So the evidence behind this is the first testable evidence actually is the Stanley-Urey experiment, where there was an experiment that set up early Earth-like atmospheric conditions where there was water vapor added, the gases that thought were in Earth's atmosphere at this time, an electrical spark that simulated energy, and then when the mixture was cooled down, it was found that there was organic molecules and also amino acids found that were the building blocks for life. So from this, if life did start in this way, life could have began to reproduce, and then this reproduction of genetic material came along with genetic mutations. And genetic mutations is the diversity that we see today, where the offspring are different than the parent, and the offspring is either more well suited for its environment and survives and reproduces and has its own grown children, or it does not survive and the species begins to die off. This happens over millions of years, and this is how the organisms evolve to their environment. Those that are well suited keep surviving, and those that are not tend to die off. Now, this can be sped up by the process of mass extinction, where many of these species will die off quicker, but the ones that do survive are the ones that are very well suited to their environments, and then they strive and carry on, and right after the mass extinction event, they really strive. So what is the evidence behind this theory? So first is there is fossil evidence, as you can see with the human bones, the cat bones, the whale bones, and the bat bones, is humans, cats, whales, and bats all have different ways of using their limbs. As cats walk on them, humans have hands, whales have fins, bats have wings. But if you look, they all have phalanges, they all have a wrist bone, they all have forearms, and they all have an upper arm bone that's associated with it. So this shows that there is a parent to all of these species, and since then, they have all adapted to their own specific environments, and they're well suited for their environments. And then also, you can see just a recent evolution is uh, ancestry to humans. You can see just how well related they are. The way they walk, their skeletons are almost identical. Uh, Really, it's just their brain function that's different at this point. And then one of the biggest things is that relates all animals and species together is DNA. DNA is in all life, as it is the genetic material that reproduces the offspring. And since this is found in all life, there is an ancestor to every single form of life on the earth. All right. So, an alternate hypothesis to evolution is intelligent design and creationism, where they're both different, but they can be related in some way. Creationism is the hypothesis that all things were created by a higher deity, and this is well seen in the Old Testament of the Bible. And then intelligent design isn't necessarily that, uh, or humans or life in general is created by a deity, but maybe designed in some way by someone that's more intelligent than us. Now, the downside to these two alternate hypotheses is instead of giving evidence to support their claims, as creationism uses the evidence within the Bible, they their evidence comes from proving wrong the uh, the testable theories that are brought forth from evolution. And this was actually a really strong argument until the late or until the 18th century, when testing for how a fossil is or the Stanley Urey experiment actually became solid evidence that that evolution is happening. So, if I had to choose which theory should be accepted, it is the theory of evolution, as in this modern day we have the power and to test these hypotheses, and we know what an early Earth-like atmosphere is like, and we know that it can generate organic molecules, and then we know what the building blocks of life are, and then we know that even watching in pesticides today, where certain bugs are immune to pesticides and they survive and they reproduce and then they eat the crops, but all the ones that uh, did not survive past the pesticides end up dying out. It shows that even in its human related evolution, as we force this to happen, but it is the same process that would be happening if humans weren't forcing it to happen. So we can physically and directly view evolution taking place from humans making it happen, and that is no different than the Earth or Mother Nature making it happen.